The first gunshot shattered the quiet of the morning like a crack of thunder, and in that single, frozen second, everything the CEO thought he knew about the quiet security guard standing near the glass doors fell apart. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Echoes the Stories, because sometimes the people we overlook carry the greatest strength. The morning had started like any other. Sunlight spilled across the polished marble floors of Halcyon Towers, turning the vast corporate lobby into a place that felt almost peaceful, almost human. Employees drifted in with coffee cups and tired smiles, their conversations blending into a low hum of routine. At the far end of the lobby stood the security desk, where a man named Ilyas Rahman quietly observed the world. He was the kind of man people rarely noticed. His uniform was always neat, his posture steady but unassuming. He spoke little, and when he did, it was with a calm tone that seemed almost too soft for a place filled with hurried executives and loud ambition. To most, he was just another guard, a background figure, easily overlooked. To Cyrus Vance, the CEO of Halcyon Dynamics, he was something worse. Cyrus had built his empire from the ground up, or at least that's what he liked to believe. He prided himself on efficiency, discipline, and surrounding himself with people who looked sharp, spoke confidently, and carried themselves with visible authority. Ilyas, in his eyes, did none of those things. He was too quiet, too still, too invisible. More than once, Cyrus had questioned why the man was even hired. He had voiced concerns to the security contractor, hinting that someone more alert-looking would better represent the company. Someone who projected strength, not silence. What Cyrus didn't understand was that silence often hides storms. Ilyas had his own history, though no one in that building cared to ask. He had once served in places where silence meant survival, where every breath could be the difference between life and death. But those years were locked away behind his calm eyes. He had come to Halcyon Towers not to prove anything, but to disappear into a simpler life, away from memories that still echoed too loudly in his mind. That morning, though, something felt off. Ilyas noticed it first, not with panic, but with instinct. A subtle shift in the rhythm of the lobby. The way the glass doors opened a fraction too forcefully. The way three men stepped inside, not like visitors, but like shadows with purpose. They were dressed like ordinary people, hoodies, caps pulled low, but their movements were wrong. Too coordinated. Too deliberate. And then, in a moment that split the world in two, one of them pulled out a gun. The first shot didn't hit anyone. It struck the marble column near the reception desk, sending shards of stone scattering like broken glass. The sound silenced the entire lobby instantly, replacing the morning hum with raw terror. People screamed. Some dropped to the floor. Others ran blindly toward exits that suddenly felt too far away. Cyrus Vance froze. He had faced high-stakes negotiations, market crashes, and ruthless competitors, but nothing had prepared him for the cold, immediate fear of a gun pointed inside his own building. His mind struggled to process what was happening, his body refusing to move as chaos erupted around him. And then he saw Ilyas. The quiet guard didn't panic. He didn't shout. He moved. It wasn't the frantic motion of someone reacting, it was controlled, precise, almost practiced. In a single fluid motion, he stepped away from the desk, his eyes locked onto the attackers. His calm demeanor shifted into something else entirely, something sharper, something dangerous. The second gunman raised his weapon, shouting orders that blurred into the chaos. But before he could fire, Ilyas was already in motion. He moved faster than anyone expected, closing the distance with a speed that seemed impossible for someone so unassuming. His hand struck the gunman's wrist with brutal precision, forcing the weapon aside just as it fired. The bullet ricocheted harmlessly into the ceiling. The lobby erupted again, but this time it wasn't just fear, it was disbelief. Cyrus watched, unable to look away. The third man lunged forward, trying to regain control, but Ilias anticipated every move. It was as if he could see seconds into the future. He pivoted, disarmed another attacker, and used their own momentum against them, sending them crashing to the floor. There was no hesitation, no wasted movement. Only control. The first gunman, recovering from the initial shock, aimed directly at Ilias. For a split second, everything slowed. The distance between them felt endless, the danger undeniable. But Ilias didn't flinch. He stepped forward instead of back. The gun fired. The shot missed, barely, because Ilias had already shifted his position, his movements calculated down to inches. In the next instant, he closed the gap and neutralized the attacker with a force that left no room for resistance. And just like that, it was over. 3 armed men lay disarmed and restrained on the lobby floor. The echoes of gunfire faded, replaced by stunned silence. People slowly lifted their heads, their fear giving way to something else, astonishment. Cyrus Vance stood there, his world turned upside down. The man he had dismissed, doubted, and nearly replaced had just saved everyone in that building. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as authorities arrived. Paramedics checked for injuries, police secured the scene, and employees gathered in shaken clusters, whispering about what they had just witnessed. But Cyrus wasn't listening to any of it. He was watching Ilias. The guard had returned to stillness, as if the storm had never existed. He stood quietly near the security desk, answering questions with the same calm tone he always used. There was no pride in his expression, no need for recognition. Just quiet composure. It didn't make sense to Cyrus. How could someone so ordinary be capable of something so extraordinary? Later that day, when the chaos had settled and the building was slowly returning to normal, Cyrus found himself standing in front of Ilias. For once, the CEO didn't feel like the most powerful person in the room. He felt small. Not because of fear, but because of realization. He thought about every dismissive comment, every doubt, every assumption he had made based on appearances. He thought about how close he had come to removing the very person who had saved his life. It was a humbling truth. People are not always what they seem. Ilias had never sought validation. He had never tried to prove himself. He simply did what needed to be done when the moment came. And in that moment, he had shown a kind of courage that couldn't be measured by resumes or appearances. In the days that followed, the story spread. News outlets called it a miracle. Employees spoke of Ilias with a newfound respect, their voices filled with gratitude. But through it all, he remained the same, quiet, composed, unchanged. Cyrus, however, was not the same. Something had shifted inside him. He began to see people differently, not as roles or titles, but as individuals with stories he didn't yet understand. He started listening more, judging less. He realized that leadership wasn't just about control or perception, it was about recognizing the value in others, even when it wasn't immediately visible. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast long shadows across the city, Cyrus paused in the lobby before leaving. Ilias stood at his usual spot, watching the doors with the same steady gaze. For a moment, Cyrus simply observed him. Not as a guard. Not as an employee. But as a person. A person who had faced more than he would ever know. A person who had chosen quiet over recognition, humility over pride. A person who had saved lives without asking for anything in return. And in that quiet moment, Cyrus understood something that would stay with him forever. Strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it stands silently in the corner, waiting for the moment it's needed most. Before we reach the end, take a moment to share in the comments, have you ever underestimated someone, only to realize later how wrong you were? The world moved on, as it always does. Halcyon Towers returned to its routine, the marble floors once again reflecting the soft glow of morning light. But for those who had been there that day, nothing was truly the same. Because they had seen something rare. Not just bravery, but quiet heroism. And for Cyrus Vance, it was more than a memory, it was a lesson. A reminder that greatness isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quietest person in the room who carries the strongest heart.